Thanks for joining us as we make our way further east, picking up from our last episode where we leave Monument Valley and make way for Four Corners, Mesa Verde National Park, Pagosa Hot Springs, then we wrap up in Dodge City, Kansas and the Boot Heel Museum. Passing over the San Juan River, which we'll cross several times more, we travel down the Code Talkers Highway, honoring those American Indians using their native language to communicate secretly during World War II. Leaving Arizona, we pass into New Mexico, turning off Highway 160 to visit the Four Corners Monument within the Navajo Nation that connects four states: Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. The tribal parks fee is $8 per person. They have restrooms, vendors, and an eatery selling Navajo fry bread. We toured a bit, took our obligatory photos, then we were on our way. Passing now into Colorado, we again cross the San Juan River, later arriving in the city of Cortez, Colorado, at an elevation of over just 6,000 feet and a population around 9,000. This is a great stop for tourists, giving access to the nearby national parks, Monument Valley, Four Corners, and more. Exiting the city to the east makes for a scenic view of the snow-capped mountains in the distance. Exiting a few miles east from Cortez, we make a stop at the Mesa Verde National Park. In the distance, we see Point Lookout rising above the terrain. Off to the left is Mesa Verde Visitor Center and Research Center. This national park was created in 1906 and preserves the archaeological heritage of the ancestral Pueblo Indians. Over 4,500 archaeological sites, of which 600 are cliff dwellings. The statue here depicts a Pueblo Indian climbing a cliff face using hand and toe holds while carrying a bundle of wood for fuel. Making our way up to higher elevation, we enter the park. Normally $20 per vehicle. With our lifetime pass, it's free. A plug to the National Park Service: if you plan on frequenting them, then an annual pass is a great way to go. Those 62 plus or military can also obtain a lifetime pass, as we did. A stop at the Mancos Valley Overlook offers a breathtaking view of the mountain range in the distance and the valley below. With this trip being in March, we still had some snow on the north-facing slopes. The Moorfield campgrounds, located here inside the park, have a lot to offer: a coin laundry, an RV dump station, and a cafe that serves pancake breakfast, and much more than I could have expected. Passing through the Moorfield Prater Tunnel, which was completed in 1957, we'll make our way up to Montezuma Valley Overlook. The Montezuma Valley Overlook offers more fantastic views, with this one towards the west-northwest. In front of us here is what remains of the original road up to this lookout. The road back then was very narrow, steep, and quite dangerous. In 1911, the trail here became the Knife Edge Road, but was closed in 1957 when the Moorfield Prater Tunnel was completed. Top of the Knife Edge summit stands at 8,290 feet. We had hoped to visit the cleft dwellings. We, however, arrived too late for the tours were about to end for the day. We also needed to make our stop in Durango this evening. This photo from the National Park's website highlights one example of what we hope to see one day on a return trip here. As our website states, it is truly a treasure to see. Heading back down the mountain, we glimpse a few remaining panoramic views of this wonderful national park. On our way to Durango, we pass the Mud Creek Hogan Trading Post, a Native American goods store. The marketing arrows that dot the grounds brings back memories for me of the twin arrows on Route 66 near Flagstaff, Arizona. These views of barns and mountains never get old. Arriving in Durango, where they have hot springs, a narrow gauge train you can ride, tons of ski slopes, and much more. We, however, were tired and dropped into the local Holiday Inn with an on-site restaurant to refuel our bodies and get some much-needed rest. The next morning, we're up and running to make our way to Dodge City, Kansas, with a couple stops in between. Up ahead, we see a wildlife crossing bridge with fencing down either side of the highway, helping game like mule deer and elk safe passage across. Coming into Pagosa Springs, we needed a quick stop, so we sought out the visitor center. Looking around, we saw many hot springs along the San Juan River. Yep, we're crossing over that river once again. We learned Pagosa Springs was highly known for their mineral hot springs. Who knew? The local spring aquifer fills bathhouses to several health and healing resorts and spas. The aquifer, at over 1,000 feet deep, is in the Guinness Book as the world's deepest. I could have used a good soaking, but Dodge City awaits us. Although I am constantly amazed at the unique cities like this we encounter traveling off the freeways. Back on the road again, we have one more mountain pass to traverse, Wolf Creek. Fortunately, the recent snowfall has cleared from the highways, giving us easy passage to the top that lies ahead. This side stop here is for installing tire chains where required by law when conditions are less favorable. Making our way to the top, I can see why the change would be required. Here at Wolf Creek Pass, we're at our highest elevation this trip, 10,857 feet. So we stop for a quick snack and watch the snowmobile action. Well, here we are up at the mountains, probably 11,000 feet up. Lots of snow, lots of snowboarding going on, or not snowboarding, snowmobiles going on and everything, so like lots of fun. Cold as can be. Yep, here we are. Probably about 10 feet of snow off on the sides. On our right, we see Wolf Creek Ski Resort. Looks like they're operating at full capacity from the recent snowfall. Geography has leveled out as we cruise through Monte Vista, Colorado. Coming in at Alamasa, we see on the left a vintage railroad engine just before we cross the Rio Grande River. Built in 1883, it was on display in the 1939 World's Fair. Traveling through the valley, we reach Blanca, Colorado, with an impressive mountain scenery surrounding it. Driving by the Blanca post office, we catch our first full view of Mount Blanca's Colorado's fourth highest summit, with a very prominent peak at over 14,300 feet. We detoured to outside of Blanca on these dirt roads just south of Smith Reservoir. where as you can see the views to the north are spectacular, and I can only imagine with the little to no light pollution how impressive the night sky might be. So here we are, right in front of me is Smith Reservoir. This is the kind of roads there, easy to pass on. We can do about 30-40 miles an hour, no problem. Every road's like this. And there's mountains you can see out in the range out through there. Let me zoom it in. Range around through there. There's a mountain range around through there. Back on paved roads and heading once more east, we travel through Blanca. As we cross over Levita Pass, our last of the mountain passes, we see Rough Mountain on the left and Mount Mestis to the right, both 11,000 footers. Those of us living in lower altitude can't seem to get enough of these beautiful mountains. I found the passing protocol down these mountains with trucks to be a little different and decided to step out of the way of these heavy rigs closing in on me and give them their space. These long stretches of snow fences help keep windblown snow from making travel from Levita to Walsenburg safer. I can imagine the drifting snow would get quite high otherwise. Passing through Walsenburg, Colorado, a town with many antique shops, a mining museum highlighting the coal mining days, was put on the map of the auto racing circles when a bit of a sports history newspaper gaffe incorrectly named Will Overhead as the winner of the 1933 Indianapolis 500. The winner was actually Lewis Meyer, who started the tradition, get this, of drinking milk after winning the Indy 500, which was actually buttermilk. I'll likely never forget this town after that piece of history. We press on across the western portion of Colorado, passing through many small towns like Los Animas, where the Santa Fe Trail operated two hubs just a few miles away, Bent's Old Ford and Boggsville. Kit Carson, along with other pioneers, operated trading and trapping centers nearby. Just outside of Dodge City, we see up on the left a shelter. This is where the Santa Fe Trail wagon wheel ruts can still be seen, from the days when it served as the Pioneer Highway from 1821 to 1872 between Missouri and Santa Fe, New Mexico. After several days, we finally make it to Dodge City, cattle country. With two beef packing plants nearby, no doubt we'll find a great place to eat well today. Traveling over cobblestone roads through downtown, we head over to the visitor center for some local information. Many of the stores were closed due to renovations in the downtown area, sidewalks and roads. The information center was full of interesting facts, clean bathrooms, and staff to help guide us around town. They highly recommended the Boot Hill Museum and some local landmarks, considering we had just over half a day to spend here. There is also a walking tour, so be sure to pick up the pamphlet and spend the day hiking around town. Outside of the visitor center, I found a familiar face from Gunsmoke TV series, James Arness, who played Matt Dillon. James Arness earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart during World War II. Next door to the visitor center, steam engine number 1139 was built in 1903 and used a boiler heated by oil. Total mileage on this old gym was about 1 million miles. These old steam engines began to retire when diesel engines came into being. La Salsa Man, at 20 feet tall, a sculpture commissioned by the late actor Dennis Hopper. These Muffler Men statues are similar to those you'll see in our videos of Route 66. This mural, known as the Queen of the Cowtown, depicts life of the cattle drive and the spirit of the American cowboy. Another mural here on 2nd Avenue celebrates the rich Latin American community in Dodge City. This building, once the Dodge City Municipal Building, is now the Boot Hill Distillery. Cowboy statue, here sculptured in 1927 to commemorate the Dodge City Cowboy era. Oxen Trailhead Monument, tribute to the Texan cattle drives, placed here on Boot Hill in 1932. Boot Hill Museum on Front Street, where buildings like this created as replicas of the famous Front Street, next to the original site of Boot Hill Cemetery. Boot Hill Museum offers one of the best ways to capture the history of Dodge City. You can easily spend a few hours here, plus more if you take in the gunfight expositions. Prices are higher in summer versus off-season when we visited, and there are discounts for seniors or veterans. Check them out at boothill.org. The tour begins in the plains, moving into the Europeans came to settle and making their way out to the west. The area was governed by many flags depicted here in the ceiling. Each section of the museum starts with the title wall like this, making it easy to follow along with each period. Each had a nice interactive displays like this buffalo rifle and targets depicting the size at different distances of the buffalo. Look at the size of those buffalo hides. The railways were an important part of history here in Dodge City. There were nice exhibits with details and artifacts bringing the history alive. Barbed wire like this is also on display at the Devil's Wire Museum on Route 66. Clothing was certain very formal back in the days compared to today. They sure had style. A famous resident of Dodge City, Wyatt Earp, who served as assistant marshal around 1876. Outside the museum, but within the museum grounds, we see a replica of the Front Street as it likely looked in the day. Inside these are more exhibits with a working saloon, a restaurant, and ice cream parlor. Here's a two-jail cell from the Civil War period. At the back of the museum, we found another series of exhibits. Matt Dillon of Gunsmoke from the TV series depicting Dodge City, but this one was filmed on set in Hollywood, California. The Cowboy Hall of Fame was a nice exhibit dating all the way to current year. Outside of this section lies Boot Hill Cemetery, part of the Boot Hill Museum. Markers were remade and considered close to where the person was actually buried. The 40-plus persons buried here have since been moved. If you know where, leave it in the comments. It was hot that day, so we stepped inside the local saloon for a cold sarsaparilla and some music. Each of these buildings have exhibits and more inside. You could spend some hours here touring and reading all about Dodge City. Even had my favorite, an ice cream parlor, but it was closed. We've come to an end of another great road trip. Join us in an upcoming video of 2 presidential library museums in Kansas and Missouri. And as always, thank you for watching.